This is World Comics Review, and I was watching some other comics channel a while back, and a commenter said it'd be interesting if Marvel and Shonen Jump did a crossover. Well, they kind of did, and this is it. It's the Marvel and Jump Plus, which I think is like the digital Shonen Jump super collaboration. So this is a bit of a weird book. So just to explain, basically Shonen Jump and Marvel couldn't really do a proper crossover, partly because every Shonen Jump story, or most of them, or I guess there's probably some exceptions, but most Shonen Jump stories are set in their own universe, although I don't suppose you could have a one-off dimension jumping meeting story. But also every Shonen Jump creator keeps the copyright to their own characters, which is although collaborations have been done. There was a whole bunch of video games in Japan which went from the Famicom or NES up to at least the Nintendo DS, maybe the 3DS, where you could play as multiple Jump characters in a sort of Street Fighter-y setting, I think. Maybe like more platforming. I don't know, I've never actually played any of them, but yeah. They a lot of legalities involved in getting the copyrights to use all of those characters, and in the West different companies have licensed different Shonen Jump characters, so it's basically impossible to release those games in the West. But anyway, let's get into the book in question. Manga always have these weird dust jackets that keep coming off, and it had this little mini dust jacket as well. So yeah, this is mostly kind of a introduction to Marvel Comics for Japanese readers. So we got these two guys who are editors at Shonen Jump, and one of them, his head is drawn as an onigiri rice ball for some reason. So they're talking about Marvel basically, and he's a onigiri onigiri Spider-Man, onigiri classic Iron Man. So yeah, the Shonen Jump and Marvel super collaboration crossover. They're talking about Marvel, and then they meet, are you ready for it, mangarified C.B. Cebulski. So yeah, when C.B. Cebulski was first going to be made editor-in-chief, a few people on 8chan's co-board were kind of excited because they were looking into his Twitter and Instagram, and they were like, oh, he just seems to be talking about food and his cat, so he might take Marvel into a more apolitical, fun direction. And yeah, the rest is history. And yeah, that didn't happen, but that was back when 8chan's co was still usable, even before 8chan got shut down and then relaunched as 8kun. The co-board had become just a disaster area. You couldn't talk about comics at all. It was just endless trolling. Yeah, I know, endless trolling on 8chan. Who would have thought about that, eh? So yeah, they're talking to C.B. Cebulski, and he actually, I believe, used to live in Osaka. He had a blog called Eat Taku instead of Otaku, which is about restaurants, and yeah, he lived in Osaka, and I think even married an Osakan, although obviously he's moved to New York now, so I wonder if he describes New York's winters as Mecha Sabui. And yeah, they're talking about basically, I missed some pages, no I haven't, right. So yeah, just talking about Marvel, each I guess 75 to 90 different comics at a time, and they're asking, is Ame-Comi, American comics, around 20 pages of story, and they're all separate, and they're asking, why don't you have every story in one big block of a book called a monthly Marvel? Yeah, you should see some Japanese monthly comics are like this thick, 1,100 pages per month. And he's like, no, we couldn't do that because reasons. We'd have to print it on newsprint and it'd be affordable. Imagine that, eh? Right. So yeah, they just the history of some of the famous characters, like Captain America, who predated Marvel. The famous Spider-Man, with great power there must also come great responsibility. Guardians of the Galaxy, which is yeah, we'll get into that. So Guardians of the Galaxy was never particularly big in Marvel comics until recently, so why are they mentioning in the history of Marvel Comics, we've got Captain America, Spider-Man obviously, but Guardians of the Galaxy were kind of a nothing burger in Marvel for years, but we'll get into that. So anyway, oh, and the Hulk obviously. Yeah, I guess this is about the order of the panels in American comics, or like double page spreads for particularly dramatic spread things. And more characters. We've got Ant-Man, Ant-Man. So yeah, describing Marvel. Actual picture of C.B. Cebulski and this editor who's replaced his head with an onigiri. Yeah, a lot of the manga creators like to use pseudonyms and remain anonymous. So yeah, let's get into the actual stories, and you're going to notice something a little bit weird. So this is a Avengers gag reel, so we've got a Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, no, not the other one. That's Scarlet Witch, Captain America, Thanos, the one from Guardians of the Galaxy, the rest of Guardians of the Galaxy, Loki, Thor, Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, blah 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 blah, the flying guy. I forgot their names already. Right. So yeah, are you starting to notice anything? You know, kind of what the characters look like, how they're acting, their costumes, what this bad guy looks like, I understand was heavily changed. So yeah, although despite the information about C.B. Cebulski and how he's the editor-in-chief at Marvel, this is actually Kevin Feige's Marvel we're talking about. So yes, this is basically, apart from like Scarlet Witch's costume you saw back there, Guardians of the Galaxy having a lot more prominence, this is basically the MCU, not Marvel Comics, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? It's kind of yeah, a country which has like hundreds and hundreds of really good comics you can buy everywhere. When they want to present Marvel to that country, they're talking about the MCU, not about Marvel Comics. Really interesting, isn't it? And kind of reminds me of the MCU's UK Facebook page. Whenever they talked about Squirrel Girl, for some reason they used artwork of Squirrel Girl that was about 20 years old instead of what Squirrel Girl looks like at the moment, which is a bit weird, isn't it? Like it's almost like they're embarrassed to present what Squirrel Girl currently looks like to an audience of normies who don't read comics. But I thought that Squirrel Girl's current appearance as kind of a fat, weird-looking, short-haired girl was meant to be more inclusive and bring more normal readers into Marvel Comics who want characters who aren't idealised people but look normal. So it's kind of weird that they were using the old idealised Squirrel Girl and not the current version when they were presenting Marvel Comics to normies. It's not embarrassed about that, surely. It's like, surely they don't actually know they're wrong deep down. So yeah, we've got this is what Thor looked like in this comic. Not fat, not a woman. This is what Tony Stark looks like. Tony Stark is still Iron Man. It's not Wee Wee Williams. Very strange, isn't it? So yeah, this is well, I'm doing my far right political ranting. I don't actually know what this story is about. I guess Avengers versus Hydra. Blah blah blah. I had to flick through and I completely missed this story. So yeah, here's Thor coming to fight the bad guys. He's an awfully drawn truck. Like, using reference pictures isn't cheating. You don't have to draw American trucks from memory. Right, anyway. Avengers. We are the Avengers. So, yeah, he's got Hulk plastered over his face. Right, oh yeah, because you may notice from the cover we've also got Spider-Man and Deadpool, because this is they got the license from Marvel Comics, but they're drawing the characters from the movies, so we get the Deadpool of the movies, not the comics. So this Deadpool samurai, like a Batman ninja that DC did, this is a lot more violent and like really gory, because the Deadpool movie is adult rated, but I guess they don't care much about this stuff in Japan. Comics are comics. And yeah, Deadpool gets transported back to the Edo period when Japan was super isolationist and kept a medieval level of technology into the middle of the 19th century. So yeah, he's like cutting people open with katanas, and he's like got comics, I guess. And yeah, he says ball as well, which but he means bullseye. Although yeah, shouting ball in English, shouting ball means something completely different, but yeah, this is bullseye because he's thrown a knife and got a guy in the head. And yeah, he's fighting these ninjas and samurai. And he pulls a piece, blows this guy away, and everyone's like, oh my god, he's using magic. This guy's like, aha, I've got a magical scroll of protection against evil magic, so your magic can't hurt me. And your magic can't hurt me, you evil wizard. And I guess he's like, oh, I shouldn't have used anachronistic technology in the Edo period. And then yeah, he just completely splatters this guy because the magical scroll of protection doesn't protect against guns. And blah, blah, blah. He's rescuing this woman, and then Wolverine shows up. Because yeah, looks like Wolverine from the movies, but they're using the Marvel Comics license so they can draw him. And drags him away, like, stop messing with history and using anachronistic technology. Right, another gag reel. Avengers in Halloween, Captain America Mummy, Doctor Strange is just kind of Halloweenish. Spider-Man with many arms, which that was actually a storyline in the comics. Black Panther, looks like the comic Black Panther, of course. I mean, the movie Black Panther, not the comic Black Panther. Blah blah blah. And then Ant-Man. This is a more realistically drawn story. Ant-Man's fighting bad guys in the USA. Loads of ants make a giant hand. Perhaps this came up before Captain America Civil War, so they didn't want to spoil Giant Man, because I don't know why though. Giant Man was in the original Avengers in the 60s, so why would they want to keep Giant Man a secret and only reveal him in the movies if this is about Marvel Comics? That's kind of weird as well, isn't it? Blah blah blah. He hears about something bad happening in Japan, so goes to Japan. Like, are you here for sightseeing? No, hero. And he's he was on the plane in his costume. Meets Japanese ants. He's telling them about America. Japanese writing's different. Cars drive on the other side of the road. In Japan, the vents in the streets don't have steam coming out, and in the USA, the vents in the street do have steam coming out. It's like is that all over the USA? I'm pretty sure it's only New York, whatever. Right. Fights the bad guys. Hillary Clinton. Fighting the bad guys. He shrinks down. She's got a virus or something. He shrinks down, goes inside her bloodstream. This is the villain who is giving this woman a disease that goes into her blood and fights her. And then she's recovered, and okay, well, they make a deal. Right, okay. And yeah, more comedy comics, realistic mangaified C.B. Cebulski. You can't unsee that, by the way. Yeah, the onigiri guy again. Another little closing gag strip. Some more incidental artwork. The Halloween Avengers. Ant-Man in Japan. And yeah, this is the Marvel Comics. Honest. C.B. Cebulski's Marvel Comics, not Kevin Feige's. Honest. Collaboration with Shonen Jump. So for that guy who was wondering what that would look like, well, this is what it looks like. Enjoy.